Hey, hey, Chonetell.
Hello.
And hey, everybody else. This is Capital Races Club. Today we have Chonetell Reaume. May I pronounce that properly? Could you say how you pronounce your name?
It's just Chonetell Reaume.
Chonetell Reaume.
And Reaume.
Awesome. And today we're gonna discuss social media and branding and wait, one second. Social media brand manager and consultant Chonetell Reaume is with us, and super stoked. Any questions that you have in the audience in the live? This is live stream, so if you have questions, feel free to pop them in, and we'll save them for later. For now, Chonetell, please tell me, how did you get your start in your business?
Well, it's kind of a funny story. So I am by trade, I'm a teacher. So I was teaching kindergarten, and I'm a basketball family. So my husband is a basketball coach, and our son plays high-level basketball. And one of my son's friends, when my son is in grade 10 now, when he was about grade 6, his friend was like, your dad should start an Instagram. Like, he's well known in the area. He should share his tips on Instagram. So I was like, yeah, I told my husband about Instagram, and, and whenever I do something, I want to do it well. So I ended up, long story short, building up my husband's Instagram. And then our basketball club, we didn't have social media. And I'm like, hey, we need to have social media. So I ended up building up our social media for our basketball club. And I started working part-time with these guys in teaching and doing their marketing. And then we were not going to do tournaments anymore because we weren't getting enough teams in. By marketing on social media, we ended up filling and having a waiting list for all of our tournaments. And then so some parents were like, hey, who does your social media? And then I kind of got into that. And then so I was doing it as a side, kind of like a side hustle, and I was teaching. And then last year we had online teaching. So I was able to kind of transition it from doing it part-time to doing it full-time. And now I do it full-time. I still am on the supply list for teaching, but I haven't taught it all this year.
Wow.
So it's just my son's friend from now they're in grade 10. And when they're in grade 5 or 6, we started this journey. Yeah.
Holy cow. And now you scaled it to where you have clients, a lot of well-known clients too. So I don't know if we can name anybody, but how did that happen? Like transitioning from basketball to social media for brand management.
So what ended up happening is I had a pretty big, I have a friend who's an investor. And so she had her social media, and they were transitioning from, the lady had moved on, and they were transitioning a new person. But what they want is they want someone that works for them strictly for their marketing. So while they were transitioning, I was taking care of their social media, and I really kind of got their following up. I got a lot of stuff. And so anyhow, long story short, she was on a podcast with Abel Pacheco, and he was like, who does your social media? And she's like, actually, we're transitioning out, but a friend of mine does it. And so then I got on a call with him, and I started doing his social media. And then again, people like, hey, who does your social media? And then that's how I kind of got into the investors, how I got doing multifamily investors, because that's what I do a lot of. And then, learning, it was one thing to get their social media part up, but then I was like, well, what are we going to do with these people? And then so we started funneling these people through our newsletters, emails, things like that, like ebooks. And then we started building up, and then we noticed that we started getting investors off of these, right? Like legit people investing with us. And so, yeah, so I really started getting more people, and then Clubhouse. So now I have a staff of 4. So we do newsletters, we do blogs, we do LinkedIn articles, and then we have an editor that kind of edits everything that we do, and we do content creation. So we have a staff of 4. So we've niched it down to real estate, multifamily investors, and fitness.
Wow, that's super cool. And Abel is, yeah, I've seen his podcast and heard him, and I heard your episode too. It was phenomenal. And holy cow, you got to work with him, and you still get to work with him and many other investors. How did that, I mean, transition go when, for your business, going to from I mean, doing social media mainly, and now doing that with more, what do you say? I mean, scaling that with investors. Like, how was that kind of a process for you? And did you have to pivot, learn something new, or how did you learn all of that? And
Well, definitely, because, at first I was doing, obviously my husband, and then I was doing a lot of like the basketball, and then I started doing fitness, and then I was doing small businesses, and then I got real estate and then investors. But anyways, I was doing a lot of little things. And it wasn't until I really niched it down for myself. So I just deal with investors myself. And then I have someone that deals with like the fitness side. And then we have real estate. It's like we all have our own little niches. But it wasn't until I niched it down where I really got good. Right. So, did you cut out? Yeah. So it wasn't until I niched it down, because if I'm only focusing on investors, right, and I'm only on LinkedIn and Instagram, I'm constantly on other investors' pages so I can see what works. I'm constantly researching the market and see, like, how are we going to get people in, coming up with new ideas. And right now I have 6 investors that I take care of their Instagrams, and then I have some that I just coach. So I meet them once a week, and we just kind of just talk about our next steps and where we're going to go and how we're going to market this. So I'm constantly talking to investors. So, this one's giving me ideas, this one's giving me ideas, and then I'm kind of just putting them all in one.
yeah,
Yeah.
That's super cool. What's the biggest problem that the investors face when they meet with you, and like, what is something that they face before they meet with you?
Well, I think when they meet with me, they're not realistic, right? So I mean, I'm not going to be able to get you investors. What I'm going to be able to do is get people into your funnel, and then you have to build that trust, and you have to get them to invest with you. So I think that, if you were an example, because I mentioned his name, like Abel Pacheco, if you ask Abel about me, he's going to say a lot of great things, but he's good at selling himself. So I can get the people there for him, and then he has to sell yourself. So it's being realistic. Like, I'm not going to be able to, get tons of people just in the DMs and say, here's all my money, I want you to invest with me. So that's one thing, is that, you have to have realistic goals, and you have to know that you're building up a trust and you're building up an audience, and that's not something that's going to happen overnight. It's going to be a process, right? And then, I think a lot of people want to have big numbers, and they just kind of focus on the numbers, and I'm not going to be able to get you, 10,000 followers, and you don't want 10,000 followers. I mean, if you're, trying to get A-class investors, accredited investors, like that's a small number, right? So if we're going to target them, you're probably not going to have 10,000 of them on your page. So we really want to be careful in who we're targeting and who can invest with us, and how we're going to build that relationship off of social media. So, it's better to have a smaller number, the people that can actually invest in you, whether it's your product or your services, than having a big number and trying to have to filter that out. Yeah. So I always tell people, like, I'm not in the business to make you famous, and I definitely don't want to make you almost famous. And what I mean by that is that I don't want you to have this great following, when you have, like, your neighbor down the street and, Sally that does nails from Australia following you, when none of these people are going to invest with you.
Makes more sense too. A lot of people are focused on vanity metrics. Meanwhile, relationship building, and like you said, you get them to the point where, hey, now we have a conversation. So how does that look? For instance, with the clients that you work with, they have their own funnels. Do you improve them somehow? Could you walk us a little bit through like, what are some platforms that you focus on and that you would highly recommend, or just feel like, hey, this is where you want to focus, because this is a great place to find investors?
So depending on what it is that you do is going to really depend on how you navigate these platforms, right? So in everyone's like, you have to be on every single platform. Well, for me, I'm like, we don't have to be on every single platform. If most of our audience is on LinkedIn, I want to spend most of my time on LinkedIn. I don't want to spend most of my time on TikTok if I only have a handful of my audience on TikTok, right? So for my investors, we're going to focus a lot on LinkedIn. Now for our fitness, we do it with a lot of personal trainers. We're going to focus a lot on Instagram. I mean, on TikTok, right? Like that's where a lot where their audience is. So it's knowing where your audience is and knowing that you don't have to be on every platform. Because if I'm making content for TikTok, that means I could be doing something different. Because we're probably, as an investor, are probably not having accredited investors clicking and trying to look for deals on TikTok. Like, we just have to be realistic, right? Where the same thing with fitness, people are not on LinkedIn, trying to get a workout plan.
Yeah.
Right? So you have to really know where your audience is, and we have to use our time and have purpose with our time. For me, we're not here to entertain, right? So if I'm just, trying to grow a following and trying to grow people and keep them on those platforms, then now we're an entertainer. I'm not here to make you to entertain your audience. I'm here to get your audience off, to build relationships, to get them to invest with you. And I think that's the difference, that you don't have to have a big following to be successful, to get people in your funnel. Right. And I think sometimes too is that we compare and we look at these numbers, and a lot of these numbers are not even realistic. A lot of these people are buying followers, they're buying likes, and it's all a big show. And we don't want to compete with someone who's not authentic or building their thing organically. And I think that's what happens. A lot of people will come to me and say like, hey, I want to be like this person. And then I have to break it down to them and say, well, this person buys followers. This person doesn't get any views. This is just a number that they bought. So we definitely don't want to be like this person. And realizing that it's a lot harder to build your social media than it was, 5 years ago. All of these platforms want organic growth. Where 5 years ago you could have went on and bought a software that would go through it and follow a bunch of real people, like actual people, and then if they didn't follow you back 2 days later it would delete them. We don't have those softwares now. So you can see a lot of people at big followings would use these softwares because they were okay, and they were Instagram and LinkedIn allowed you to use these things, where they don't anymore. So that's how a lot of people have big followings. That started maybe 3 or 4 years ago, where now Instagram is really banning those things. It's against their policy.
It also makes sense. You don't necessarily want that kind of attention either from, right now there's a lot of the bots. They are still there on the platform. And you can definitely tell when you attract that kind of a crowd, it's a little bit, it brings down the whole quality of the posts. And what would you say is something like, how do you avoid that, or how do you handle that?
Like when people buy bots, or
when
how do I
reach out to you, or how to just grow organically instead of attracting bots as much?
So you don't really attract bots. Bots will jump on your account. That's always going to happen. So what I like to do is I set aside Wednesdays, and I will get rid of all the bots. So, my clients on Wednesday, they know that their numbers are going to go down because I'm going to get rid of those bots. And why am I going to get rid of those bots? Because I want everyone that sees my message, I want my message to go out to actual people. If I have a bot, and, because when you post anything, it only goes to 10% of your following, right? Whether it be Facebook, LinkedIn, TikTok, whatever it may be. And then the more people that like it and comment, that tells these platforms, or the algorithm, that you're interested, and they send it out to more people, and the process just keeps on going and going, right? So that's why the likes and the comments are really important, because that's the only way the algorithm knows what you're putting out has value. So with that, can you hear me?
Now we can hear you. You're back.
Okay. So if I can't see myself, so if my content goes out to a bot, right, then they're not going to it's not going to go to anyone, right? Oh, yeah. I think I might have to leave and come back.
I don't know. It works. We can hear you. It's okay. This is live, so everybody who's watching this live right now, feel free to post your questions if you have any questions right now, or share, and that way we can bring them up on the during the show.
Okay, so I'm gonna have to. I can't see or hear, so I don't know what's going on. I'm gonna log out and come back.
Sure.
I hope you guys can hear me.
I can hear you. Cool. This is a great time to do a reset. Capital Races Club. You can go to www.capitalracesclub to see more of these videos. We have a technical difficulty right now, and Chonetell will be right back. This is super cool. I'm going to play the countdown again. No need.
Hold up. Okay, can you hear me now?
We can hear you just fine.
Okay, sorry, I couldn't. I just blacked out. Someone, and it wouldn't let me.
No worries.
So anyways, when we have bots, we don't want our content to go out to those people, right? So we want to delete them. So if you delete your bots or whatever, or ghost followers, people that are no longer on the platform that haven't posted in the last year, we don't take the risk of our message going out to them. So I delete those people.
That makes sense. So the bots, I mean, you also talked about the algorithm, and it goes first out to 10%. Could you go a little bit deeper into that? How does that work? Somebody who's looking to grow their following organically, not with bots and bot likes, what would your advice be to them? Like, hey, this is what you should do.
For me, okay, so I started a lot of investment Instagrams. I've started a lot over from scratch, right? From 0 followers, because I don't want my friends and my family to follow me. So this is a little trick that I use. Any Instagram from scratch is, for one, I always go to a podcaster, right? Because if I want investors, I want people that are interested in investing. So to get my first 100 followers, because people really don't take you serious until you have 100 followers. They don't know if you're a bot yourself or if you're legit. So what I do is I go to podcasters and I start targeting the people who like their content, not the people that are following them, because I know that I need likes and I need comments. So whenever I'm trying to grow something, I always go and look at a podcaster or another Instagram that has a high numbers. But like, for instance, like an investment, I wouldn't go to Grant Cardone. His numbers are way too big, right? So I wouldn't go to his page because his numbers are way too big, and a lot of people follow him that are not investing, right? They're like, he's kind of an entertainer, which is whatever, that's all to him. I'd probably go to a smaller someone that maybe had 20,000 followers, and then so what I would do is I go through the people that like their post, and I start following those people and interacting with those people. And then I know that these people were engaged because they've already engaged in something else. And so they're probably engaged in my post as well. Because that's what you want. You want people that are going to follow you, that are going to engage, because it's always going to bring you to the top of the feed. Because we don't everyone sees your feed, but I don't want people scrolling all the way down to the bottom, right? And once you scroll down, if you go back up, it just gives you a bunch more, right? Like, so if I'm at the bottom of someone's feed, I'm going to stay there until they scroll down. And what are the odds of someone scrolling all the way down? So we always want to be at the top of someone's feed, if that makes sense.
It does. So the algorithm works in that way where the ones that are commenting earlier, that makes you go higher.
It makes you go higher.
So what are you focused on mainly?
And so that's why it's really important, because the algorithm really works in that first hour. So the first hour you post, that's why it's super important to know the time that you're posting. Because if you're posting at like 10 o'clock in the afternoon, in the morning, there's probably not a lot of people on at 10. They're probably working, they're busy. So if you post at between 4 and 5, people are just getting off of work. What are they doing? They're going on their phones. Or if you post like 12 o'clock, people on their lunch breaks, they're going on their phone. So knowing when your audience is on, because you want to get those likes and those comments within that first hour, because that's really when the algorithm is going to rate you.
Yeah, that makes sense. So the faster you get those likes, the faster you can go scale, and you want to focus on the organic followers, where they're at in their workday.
Yeah. So for instance, one thing that I'll do is to get likes is, so if I post something for, an investor, what I will do is I will go into, first I go on my feed. Before I post, I'll go on my feed and I'll start liking and comment on some things that are on our feed. Then I will post, and then I'll go back and I'll like and comment some more. And then what I'll do is I'll go on #real estate. Even though these people are probably not going to invest with me, if you go on a big number hashtag, like #real estate, there's people constantly every second, because it's such a big hashtag, they're constantly posting things. So what I do is I'll go in there, I'll go to the 10, and then I'll go to the first 10, and I'll like their last. I don't follow them, I just like their last 3 posts. I know that these people are on their phones right now because it just said that they posted 1 second ago. So now when they look, they're going to see that I just like 3 of their stuff. They're probably going to go to my page and like some of my content. And then once I go to 10, I refresh it, and now I'm back at those fresh ones that just posted a second ago. If that makes sense?
Yeah, it does make sense. And I remember from back in the day, that was sort of how the bots were targeting new clients too, where, yeah, you have a
So
lot.
I just do that to boost so when people that can invest in me, that are following me, when they do get on their phone, I've told the algorithm that this is a really good post because all these people from the #real estate have liked it, that I'm going to end up on the top of their feed when they do go into their phone.
Super cool. What would you say to a person who's trying to build their brand right now, and what platforms you mentioned earlier depends on what you're focused on? For instance, with the fitness, you have TikTok, and with the real estate, it's more towards LinkedIn or more professional platforms like that. What would you say to somebody who's, let's say, in the real estate space? Should they focus more on Instagram, more on TikTok, more on
Well,
LinkedIn?
I think Instagram, because Instagram has the most people on every platform is on Instagram. So Instagram is always going to have the biggest following. So you're always going to have Instagram. So Instagram is always going to be your one. And then what is your secondary? So if you're a real estate agent and you're doing open houses and things like that, I'm going to say you're going to be on Instagram and TikTok. Yeah. Right? Because a lot of people, we're not targeting, we're targeting like people that want to buy their first home or family homes, right? We're not targeting, multifamily investors. So if you're a real estate agent, you're going to want to be on Instagram and on TikTok and do those cool videos of your open houses and your properties, right? And you're going to have content because you're constantly, getting new properties. Now, again, if you're an investor, you're probably going to want to be on LinkedIn, because that's where you're going to find, those high-end investors, mostly on LinkedIn.
That makes sense. What would you say in regards to content? Because a lot of people are afraid of doing that first post. And I've noticed that also on, not just on Instagram, but also on LinkedIn, where you have so many people who are waiting, they're lurking, and they haven't taken that step. What would you say to them?
So I use either this, 70% of our business or whatever it is we're doing, and then the 30%, personal stuff, right? I'm a strong believer, if you're an investor, to show people that, 1, you're looking for deals, because people will DM you that they have a deal, and 2, that you're looking for people to invest in your deal. So put your deals out there. Now, if you have a deal that you obviously can't post on social media, well, how are you getting people to the funnel, right? So that's blogs, newsletters, just trying to get people on those conversations. But people need to know that we're doing things to know who we are, right? We want to be people in our niche or in our community of investors to know that we're making things happen. And especially we want to show people that want to invest with us that we're constantly investing, right? And that people are investing with us. So I just got this deal. And I'm telling people like, hey, yeah, maybe you missed out on this deal, but stay tuned. I'm working on my next deal. And then when that deal comes out and I post it, I'm going to say like, hey, if you missed out on our last deal, whatever that deal's name might have been, here, try out this one, or join us for this webinar.
Makes more
right
sense.
So I'm constantly on the next step, right? Like, so yeah, I have this deal now, but I'm still kind of molding people that are not ready for this deal to my next one. Not really molding, but I'm preparing them for my next deal, because we have to remember, like, everyone's like, I don't want to be too salesy, right? Yeah. I don't want to miss out because someone doesn't know that I'm looking for an investor either.
Yeah. What would you say when you're priming or when you're preparing your investors, for instance, or you're warming up your leads, basically, right? So when you're getting them off the platforms, You mentioned it very, very briefly in the beginning that, oh, wait, maybe you didn't. We met before, so maybe I'm taking this from a different conversation. But how do you get that relationship to the next step? Now you have your follower, you already posted the content, 70% professional, 30% personal. How do you get that relationship now that, hey, I want to meet with you. I want to get to know you better, not just the social media presence, but
Well, taking opportunities to DM people, right? So we have to see what those opportunities are when we can give them a DM or interact with them and build that relationship. But it's always getting them on an email list, right? Whether it's, it's someone's birthday and LinkedIn tells us the birthday, instead of sending, that generic LinkedIn happy birthday thing, like let's send them an email. Like let's send them an email with a birthday card, right? This is an investor that I want to invest with us. Let's go to that next level, right? Their email address is right on LinkedIn. If you don't have it, you can, email them a birthday letter. If it's just one, they're not going to end up in their junk mail if you're, using MailChimp or sending out masses of emails. So if there's someone that send them an email and say, hey, I saw it was your birthday. I hope you have a great birthday, right? Send it so you're not competing with that.
yeah.
But taking those opportunities and seeing and also knowing who your avatar is and how you're going to target them, because investors, if I'm an investor, my investors are investing in their own deals, right? Like my investor, like Abel Pacheco's not going to invest in all my other clients' deals. He's investing in his own deals, and all my other clients are not going to probably invest in Abel's deals. They're trying to raise their capital on their own deals. So how do we get those? Like I can have everyone follow. I can have a bunch of investors follow you, but they're investing in their own deals. So how do we get people to invest in our deals that are not investing in their deals, right? So that is the tricky part. And that is, if you, like, for instance, one of our clients does tech, right? So I go in and I Google, like I will Google tech or tech companies that just went public, right? So I'm like, okay, well, this is a tech company that's doing fairly well. And you think it's simple, but, we have to have these strategies. So I will go in and then I will find them on LinkedIn, and then I will start following their employees. If someone is a doctor, I will look up, if it's medical, like I have one where his wife is a doctor, so he likes to do that. So, okay, who are we following? We're following this doctor. I will go on their Instagram or on their LinkedIn, and I'll look who's following them, and other doctors are following them. So I will, engage with them. But our content has to be why doctors or lawyers or, tech people should invest in the real estate. Like your content has to go with your avatar.
Right. So we're back to content. What would you now say for let's say an investor who is looking to find what is my niche? How do you answer that to a new investor or somebody who's looking to find their niche? Like, hey, this is what I'm good at. This is what you should be talking about.
Well, if you're an investor, your niche is probably going to be in other investors, right? It's going to be investing, right? So, I mean, if your avatar and your niche are kind of going to be a bit different, right? I guess, if that makes sense. So usually I ask people, because some people don't know, I'm like, okay, besides, who would be who is the person that you want to target, right? Like, who do you find, like some people it's lawyers, right? Like, who do you find that has the money to invest with you? And then those are the people that we start to target. But there always has to be that why. Like, you always have to, educational wise is how you're going to get them in, right? So, why, if you're a lawyer, why you should be investing in real estate, or do a blog on that, right? Like why, retirees, or, why your money should go here, right? Like do a blog, do something educational to have something click for these guys to want to follow you and to want to invest with you. I hope that makes sense.
Then it becomes more of the where's the balance between entertainment, education, and cultivating those relationships.
Yeah, and that's why I try to use pillars. So I try to do quotes. I love quotes because, quotes is going to get you that engagement. Everyone can kind of, relate to a motivational quote or something like that. So that's my filler. So I'll always do some kind of motivational quote, but then I'll try to bring it back to investing, right? Like when investing, you have to be resilient or whatever, right? So I'll use a quote on that. So I try to do a quote once a week, and then I'll do an educational one. So I just say Mondays a quote, and then Wednesday I'm doing an educational one, and then Friday I could do a meme or something, right? Like I could do something that's entertaining, kind of funny, and then the other things, or Friday could be personal, and on Tuesday and Thursday, and I'm just floating these around, I'm doing more about like deals and and things like that. But I'm constantly preparing people. So if I go look at a deal, I'm going to be, showing you that, hey, I looked at this property, stay tuned because I'm looking for deals, right? Like this property may be under contract sooner than later, and it may not be. And then sometimes what I'll do is I'll have my guys get in a car and say like, hey, like obviously not the property, but I just looked at a property. I didn't buy this property because it had a huge fountain. That huge fountain is going to be a liability. It's going to bring up my insurance. So I'm not going, so also educating people why you don't pick these properties. Obviously do not show the property, but tell them like, hey, I looked at this house. It needed a new roof, because I do single family investors as well. So educating people as well and going along that journey of you building up your portfolio and why you're saying no to some properties and why you're saying yes. And even when, things happen, like for instance, I have one who just bought a small multifamily in the stairs. Like he redid the stairs and they're horrible. He has to redo them. Well, that's 20 grand that, he has to is a loss right now for him, right? So the thing is though, is he went on and he said, you have to prepare for these things, right? So it's like, how do you prepare for these things? Just like educating people somehow on your mistakes as well, and knowing like he did everything he needed. He got the recommendations, he got the testimonials, like this guy did stairs for another multifamily investor, all of these things. And it wasn't the business, it was the people that were working for him, right? So whatever it may be, but, educating people on, what not to do so they can learn from you as well. And that actually builds more trust when you're willing to show people that you're not perfect.
Yeah.
And that you can get out of it. Like, hey, yeah, like I did this, but this is how I got out of this, right?
That's super cool. Yeah, there's definitely lessons to learn about mistakes that's been happening. And I've noticed a lot of the most I would say engaging posts, they're educational in some way of, hey, you messed up, but at least you learn from it. I have that in my own post. So that's super valuable as content. And I think for somebody who's starting out, that's going to be a tricky one to start with, like being vulnerable, being, showing that kind of a side. So
well, when you start out, I always say start out basic, and know that it's hard. Like starting something from scratch. Like whenever someone comes to me and says like I don't have one, I'm always like, oh, because it's so hard, and I'm good at what I do, and it's hard for me. So I don't focus on so much as like content when I'm starting out a new Instagram. It's all quotes because it's easy to suck people in with quotes. And then just basic stuff, and it's more engaging and trying to build that following over 100 people, because it's like if you can't get over 100 people in a small period of time, it's going to be really hard. And the last thing that you want to do is have 50 followers but you're following 500 people. Yeah. Right? Because sometimes people just like, I'm just going to follow everyone and hope that they follow me back, but really we have to do it like 10 here, 10 there, and really engage with those people. If we're just going to press follow, and people come to our page and we have nothing, they're not going to follow us. And I think that's where people get into mistakes, where when they're starting an Instagram, they end up, having 100 people, but they're following 2,000 people. We never want that. But you're not going to be successful on these platforms if you do it that way.
What would you say is the correct amount of ratio, or comparing comments, engagement in other people's posts and posting yourself? What would you say the 80-20 principle of basically everything?
I don't really think that there's something you can engage with, because depending on who you're following is, like for investors, it's going to be really hard. Or real estate agents, it's going to be really hard to get those comments. Now, if I'm doing something basketball, it's going to be super easy because everyone's going to say like, that's a nice shot, or that was a sweet move, or whatever it may be. So it's really hard to give a ratio to it because everyone is different. Everyone's niche is going to be different. And if I'm dealing with busy investors, they probably don't have the time to leave me a message. Towards if I'm basketball and I'm dealing with like 16-year-old boys or girls, right? They're going to leave all those comments. So it's just kind of like, knowing, I don't know if there's a ratio, if that makes sense. But knowing how to do it and the best way to grow is engaging with other people, taking the time to engage with other people. So leaving those, like, you know, on a podcast, like, wow, that was a really great clip. I'm going to make sure I listen to this whole podcast. Or, you know, congratulations, not just congratulations, like congratulations on this new property. Looks really great. You know, like just leaving messages like that. Sometimes even leaving just emojis, because you can leave more messages, but, you know, make sure you're leaving those good messages as well when you get the chance to.
Yeah, that makes sense. On LinkedIn, I've noticed that commenting can be even more powerful than posting, especially when starting out. What are your thoughts on that platform for engaging or starting out your account? Because a lot of people have their accounts and they're just sitting there, and they're just.
I know. I find LinkedIn, to be honest, I find it a little bit harder because, like, I'll go in and I'll try to engage with someone, and I know that they're active on LinkedIn because they like all of our posts, but I go there and it says that this person hasn't posted, you know, in 2 years, so I can't engage with them. Where usually if someone hasn't posted on Instagram in 2 years, they're just not on Instagram. They just kind of left that alone. So I find it's a little harder on LinkedIn, but I use the same kind of strategy as I do on Facebook. I mean, sorry, on Instagram. Whenever I post something, I always go back to my last post that had the most likes and comments, and I just make sure I go back and I'm commenting and liking on that person's last post. So that way they're kind of seeing me and I'm in their mind. So when my post does show up on their LinkedIn or Instagram, they just know that I just left them a message because they've seen me in their feed.
That's super cool. Yeah.
And two, like, it's funny. Here's just a little tip that I do is when I have a client that's going on, you know, a meetup or an event. Usually, when you go to an event, they'll give you a list of people that are going to be there or speakers. So what I do is I take that list, I find those people on LinkedIn, and I find those people on Instagram, and I interact with them. So when I go in that room, they've just seen me on their Instagram for the last like week or whatever. So I'm now approachable.
Yeah. And also you're top of mind because holy cow, you liked all of my posts. Who are you?
Yeah.
I
But I don't do it stalkerish either. I can't throw on the way I do things as well.
What's the right ratio for not being a stalker? No, I'm just kidding. But when you have, for instance, an event, do you create those for? I mean, would you suggest creating those kind of things also? Besides.
So when I have an event, like if I have someone going to an event, I like to tell people that we're going to that event. So, hey, I'm going to be at the Super Summit. If you see me, make sure you say hi. Because there's probably going to be people, if you're an investor, there's probably going to be people on your social that are going to be at that event that you don't know. And now I just made myself approachable. I'll put it in my newsletter. These are events I'm going to be at. These are events I'm going to be speaking at.
That's super cool. That makes more sense too, and it invites conversation. What would you say when we briefly touched on it, when you go from having liked to building that relationship with building those relationships on the platforms, going to the DMs, what's the next step after that? Like now you have those interactions, you're talking with each other, saying happy birthday and whatnot. How do you get?
Well, it's always a phone call, right? I mean, if you can skip everything and just get on a phone call, do that, right? It's always going to be an in-person. It's always going to be an in-person, or, you know, phone calls in person are always going to be better. Like if you could skip everything, all these funnels at the end of the day is that, right? Like being on a phone call and then selling, you know, your product, your services, whatever it may be, right? Whether that's fitness, getting on a phone call and saying like, hey, why do I need to be a personal trainer?
That makes sense. So that's where the focus should be. Like the end goal should be, hey, we're gonna take this relationship offline in one way or another, and just cultivating that relationship.
If you don't have a strategy or, you know, an end goal on social media and you just want to keep them on, you're just like, hey, I just want my numbers, whatever, like you're not getting people off these platforms, and you're really working for them, right? Like you're really working for LinkedIn or you're really working for Instagram by keeping them on. The thing is though, these platforms need us to make money because they need us to keep people on, right? Where I don't do that. I'm teaching people how to get people off, whether that's like subscribing to my blog, subscribing to my newsletter, where I don't have all this filler. It's just me, right? I'm not competing with everyone else on LinkedIn or on Instagram, right? So, and it's a great way to get my following to know me on a different level, again, where there's not all this competition.
That makes sense. And also, is that next step for the website then? What's the purpose of the website or getting them to your domain? What's the purpose of that? Other than just not having the competition, but what's the next step after they get on your website? Now, where's the purpose in not having a website?
Well, and I think that's sometimes where people kind of go wrong with their website, is they don't have a contact, right? It's like they don't have like, hey, like a blog or a newsletter or like a funnel for their emails, right? I mean, it's always going to be something, right? Like the more touches we get on someone, the more, platforms we're on, whether that's even an email or a newsletter or Instagram or Facebook, the more people see us, the more they get to know us, the more trust they get, the more they're going to want to invest with us or buy our products and our services, right? So we always want to be making those different touches, but we want to have those opportunities. But again, a blog, for instance, is a great way to tell people that I know what I'm doing. You're going to read my blog and you're like, well, this person knows what they're doing. I'm going to invest my learned sums of money with these guys. Or your newsletter, like we can't tell everyone what we're doing, right? Like you can subscribe to my newsletter and what all the events I'm going to be on, what new deals I have, what deals I just sold, what podcast I'm on. You're going to know all of these things. Now, is someone going to go through my Instagram and just scroll down my Instagram and spend not hours, but even 5-10 minutes to figure out what's going on in my life? Probably not. And people say like, well, newsletters are not that great. They are. There's lots of people that click on that, and that's why you have to have an email strategy too, right? Like you have to know your analytics or your insights of your email. So I know that when I sent out an email, I had 50 people click on this. If I have 50 people click on my investment deal, well, then that's really good. I'm not going to get anyone off of Instagram probably clicking on an investment deal because I don't have an option to have an investment click deal on Instagram, right? Yeah. So if I have 50 people, it doesn't matter if I have, 100, my email list is of 100 and my email list is of 10,000 people. I don't need 10,000 people to invest in my deal. But now I have 50 people that I know are interested and want to learn more about this deal. So now I take those 50 people and I invite them to a webinar. Now I have 50 people that I can sit down on my webinar and I can tell them about my deal. Okay, so out of those 50 people, now I have 10 people that are serious, right? And then I only have one. But if I only have one person that is going to invest $100,000 with me, that whole process was worth it.
Oh yeah, most definitely. That makes sense. So does it become a little bit difficult to handle all of this when, for a lot of investors, we're looking at a lot of properties. Is that where that's the reason where people connect with you, Chonetell? Or
so wait, can you say that question again?
When they're, all of these processes, building that funnel, having social media presence, having the website and everything else, is that the major pain point that your clients have when they come to you?
Like is that why they come to me?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because a social presence is so important now. Like, again, people are going to stumble upon your Instagram or your LinkedIn more than they're going to go to your website, right? Like we have to physically, Google the website, right? You have to physically put in designed by Telly, right? I can just end up on your feed because you heard me speak and you followed me 5 months ago, right? So that's why the social presence is so important. But again, I still want to get you where, what's going on in my website. And websites are super important for that funnel, right? And when you're trying to raise capital, or even if, you're trying to sell candles or whatever it may be, there's still some, type of trust that you need, right? And I need someone to go. Like, where are you going to go to buy my candles, right? You can't, I don't know why I use that as an example, but I have to have somewhere to send you.
Yeah. Are there any no, wait, I'm going to go to this question. Resilience, you mentioned the word, when you said that you could post a quote. So resilience is a critical at these times. And how would you define resilience and how has it helped you with your business and your clients' businesses?
For me, I think resilience is preparing for change. Like in the last year or two, even for myself, like, because of COVID, I'm now doing this full time and not teaching, but understanding with social media too, that there's going to be change. Like, 5 years ago or 10 years ago, everyone thought, hey, Facebook was going to be the thing. Facebook is now dying off, right? So you have to be willing to change. And I get a lot of investors that say, like, they get on a call with me and they're like, well, people are not looking to invest off of social media. And I'm telling you, well, they are. And if you want to know, like, talk to some of my clients and they will tell you that they are getting investors off of social media. So we have to stop being so stuck in this, the past or, what's not working, and, kind of be open-minded to other things, I guess.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of change happening. And, even with, the meetups, like, we couldn't meet in person. My clients, we were doing webinars like crazy. And that's how we were getting our investors. Now, some people were just sitting back and not doing anything at all.
So you mentioned mindset and being openness. So you're a successful business leader, Chonetell. And which 3 character traits would you say are the most instrumental to your success?
Can you say that again? Sorry?
Which 3 character traits do you think were the most instrumental to your success?
For me, I just like, one is for me, for my success is knowing the power of my words.
Yeah.
Really, like for me, it's just like, showing people in confidence, like, having that confidence, taking those risks, right? Like for me, it's just like I left, a very good job to do this, right? Like I'm teaching, I'm guaranteed to have summers off, I have Christmas off, I don't have to compete with anything. I just go in, do my job, and come home. But just, taking that all away and making the risk and putting yourself out there.
Yeah. That's super cool. And you've adapted super quick too. Where is the audio low?
Yeah, it's really low, so I'm trying to hear.
Okay, so yeah, but you've adapted super well and you're super successful now, and it's been tremendous watching what you've been doing and the work that you've been doing. And what would you say are some of the things that you would like to leave the audience with, that hey, these are the things that you should focus on if you already feel that this is the next step, you want to build that funnel? Where should they focus first, would you say?
I think I'm hearing your question right. So I'm kind of going off of the questions that you sent me. I'm having a hard time hearing you, but I think you're asking me what I want to leave them with. Can you hear me fine?
I can hear you perfectly, and we're gonna see in the replay later. But yeah,
okay.
I can hear you.
On my end, you're low. So anyhow, what I would say is that, Instagram, social media is hard. If it wasn't hard, I wouldn't have a job. You wouldn't be here listening. So it is hard. Keep that in mind. But it's necessary now, right? Like we have to have some kind of social presence. If people don't know what we're doing, they don't really know who we are, right? And start now, the sooner the better. And yeah, and there's a lot of things you can do. I'm not trying to sell myself either, but there's lots of social media managers out there. And I always tell people, like for myself, I have a cleaner that comes and cleans my house. Why? Do I get anything in return? But I know that I only have to work an hour a week to pay my cleaner. For my cleaner to come with her 3 staff and do whatever I do, that would take me maybe a day to clean my whole house, right? But I can do a lot, and I know I just have to have 1 coaching client a week, and that cleans my house, right? So, I mean, think about what you could be doing other than social media. And if you can be doing something else to make more money, then get a social media manager. Yeah. Right? Because it's super important. And if you can't, then you know what? Like there's Canva, there's so many things that you can do to give yourself that presence. Because I deal with a lot of small businesses that, they don't have the budget for a social media manager. But there are ways that you can be successful without having to pay for someone to do the work. But the work needs to be done. So you need to remember that. You need to have some kind of social presence. Whether it's one platform and you're posting once a week, you need to have something for some people to go to.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And especially a lot of these people don't have websites, right? A lot of new investors are just starting out. They don't have a website, right? So that social presence can mean a lot when you're just starting out.
Yeah. So
I hope that answered your question, because I was having a hard time.
It was a perfect answer, and I really liked it. I was thinking of, we left out a little bit of time for audience questions. Instead of going to the audience questions, because we didn't get very many today, I could go to some questions that we've had on the show previously, which are social media related. So one of the questions that have been a lot of the times, which platform do you go? We already answered it a little bit, but which platform do you focus on first when it comes to real estate? Which platform is the 80% where you focus instead of, 80/20?
It doesn't matter, whatever it is, a small business, real estate, fitness, whatever, it's always going to be Instagram. It's always because it has the most following. Most people are on Instagram. I think we all know someone who's on Instagram, like just most people on Instagram, right? So as a real estate agent, not all your real estate agents are going to be on LinkedIn, or they're not all going to be on TikTok, but majority of people are going to be on Instagram. So Instagram is always, if you had to pick one platform to be on, Instagram would be that platform for me.
That makes sense too. When you have a post that's not doing well, do you just delete them?
No, never delete. Archive it. Don't delete it. Because when we delete things, it tells these platforms that our content isn't good, right? So we don't delete it, just archive it. So okay. just archive it. Another thing when we're talking about archiving is a mistake that people make is sometimes, especially on Instagram, just the way it's laid out, is they will have like 600 posts. No one is going down to scroll down to see your 600 posts, right? Like who has time for that? So what I like to do is I like to keep a base of 100 posts because I have more control of what you're seeing, right? Like I'm telling you when to stop. So I know that everything within this amount, or 100 or 200, I know it's all going to be valuable. And then so I archive posts as I go along. So then it's not like people don't have the option to kind of scroll down to see, something I did, whatever amount. And it is good to see that you grow. So I may keep some of those posts, but I really like to have control when people stop on my pages.
That makes sense. That was a fantastic answer. I think that was a big heads up for anybody who feels like, hey, this is not good, delete it. And then you're telling the algorithm basically that, what are some other things that you've noticed that people really mess up when they're starting out on their own with social media presence?
The biggest thing that I see that people do, and it's always in my DMs, and the biggest DMs that I get, is that people think that people are going to follow you if you have a lot of followers. Be like, oh yeah, I bought 1,000 followers because no one's going to follow me if I don't have any followers, right? Well, for one, everyone knows that you bought followers, so no one's really going to want to follow you. And two, as an investor, you want to be honest. And if you're buying followers and you want people to invest large sums of money with you, you got to be really careful, right? Because they want to know that you're genuine, right? So you want to be really careful, especially when you're asking for anything in general, like anything at all, whether it's fitness, right? Whatever it may be, this is, people are going to look at you, and if these numbers mean that much to you, that you have to fudge them, I don't know if I want to do business with you. So keep that in mind if you decide to buy followers. But anyways, a lot of them will buy followers, and then they will come to me and say, hey, I had, 5,000 followers and Instagram just took my account away. That doesn't really happen. And so I'll get on a call with them. And there's a strategy that you could use to get your account back. And then I'll say, listen, before I tell you the strategy, you need to be honest with me. Did you buy followers? Because if you bought followers, there is no way for you to get your account back. It is 100% against Instagram's policy, and you're not going to get it back. And usually they say yes. And I'm like, well, that's why you lost your account. There's only two ways you're going to lose your account. You're going to lose it by buying followers, or you're going to lose it by clicking on someone that says, hey, I can buy followers, right? Those scam ones. If you click on a link there, or here, buy some Bitcoin, that's how you lose. It's a click, or it's buying followers. It's giving someone your password, right? That's what's going to make you lose your account. And what people think is that Instagram, they do audits randomly. So if they just randomly pick your account and you do anything to break their rules, they just delete your thing, and there's no getting it back. There's no getting it back. So I always tell people, because they're like, well, how does someone know? Because they're constantly doing random audits. And that's why our numbers go down, because bots will follow us, right? We all get those random bots, and then people are like, oh, my numbers went down by 5 people. Well, probably because 5 bots kind of jumped on your account, because they jump on our accounts. And then when they get the audit, Instagram will delete them. But if you have a bunch of bots following you, Instagram is going to think you're a bot and they're going to delete you. And now when you go to them and you say like, hey, my account, they're going to say like, well, you bought bots. Obviously, there's not real people. You have 1,000, bots on your account. They're not going to give your account back.
Yeah.
So you have to be really careful because it's random. And some people, they buy followers and they go on years without anything. But everyone's going to have followers, but if you buy followers and you get that audit within a year, you're going to probably lose your account.
What would you say to somebody who's currently, okay, I'm not saying that somebody is doing this or not, but people who want to use automation for everything, liking, commenting, everything. You mentioned earlier that was more prevalent back in the day, but I'm sure it's still happening. What would you say to somebody who's considering
it's the same thing. It's the same thing. Like if you're like now, so there's like rules, right? So you can only like 300 posts within an hour. You can only follow 50 people, like follow and delete 50 people within 1 hour. So if you're doing these or you're buying these bots, then you're taking the risk of them doing, more than what they're supposed to be doing. And then you're going to get your account banned or shadow banned, or you're going to lose that action. You're going to bring your trust down. And then that means if your trust is down, that means you're not going to be on the top of people's feeds. And again, if you're doing that automation to get those likes and those followers, you're taking the risk again, because it's clearly against their policy that if your account gets flagged and it keeps on getting flagged, eventually they're just going to disable your account. So it's really not worth it.
Yeah.
So with the automation, so like for instance on Canva, you can automatically post. You can schedule your post through Canva. So Canva is a good scheduling post. There's lots of good scheduling post softwares out there where you can schedule your post. But again, we don't really want to do that unless you're a small business or you're an investor. You don't really have time. Then I would schedule my post. But if you can do it organically, always do that, because they know, Instagram, these platforms know when you schedule your post, and what is their goal is to keep you on their platform. So if they put you at the top when you're scheduling your post, that means no one's gonna be watching, right? So they want people physically on the platform. So you do get penalized when you do schedule things. So keep that in mind.
That's a great tip. I didn't even realize that. I was recently considering myself for a lot of things that, hey, just schedule it, because there's so much on my plate.
I will schedule some posts. So like sometimes on the weekends, if I'm busy and I'm going to be out, I will schedule a client's post and I will tell them, I'm like, hey, I'm going to schedule your post. On the weekend, that's when we do a lot of our personal posts, because people are not really on, they're doing their own thing. So if it's a scheduled family photo or something, it's just letting people know who we are. I would never schedule a new deal. I would never schedule something like that. I would never, anything that's really important, or a new blog or something like that where I want to funnel people off. I would never schedule a post like that.
That makes sense. Hey, Chonetell, holy cow, we're closing up on the top of the hour. So where can we find you? How do we get a hold of you? You said Design by Telly real quick. You said that already, but
yeah, so I have a website. It's just called Design by Telly. And then that's all my platforms. The same thing on, actually on Clubhouse, I think it's just Chonetell Reaume. So like my name is right there. And then on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on Instagram, it's just Design by Telly. I'm not big on Facebook. Because I do this all day. Even my own LinkedIn, I'm not really good on LinkedIn for myself, because I do this every day. And for me, I make my clients successful. I'm not really, keen on making myself successful on these platforms. I do have a great following. I get good engagement on my Instagram, so I do focus on that more. But I have a small little guy. He's 2. So, when I do have the time, I'd rather focus my time on my family than necessarily building my own social presence.
Makes sense. I just wrote down here, so for those that are watching the video, they can see it, and it will be in the show notes later. So, wait, this is the way on. Is it? Oh, I shouldn't have added the Instagram. Maybe that confuses. Anyways, thank you so much, Chonetell. I learned a lot. Holy cow! I'm sure a lot of people who are watching this are going to be learning a lot too. And
so, if you go to my website, you can schedule a 15-minute call. And I just go through your Instagram, I just kind of, or your LinkedIn, whatever it may be, and I give you tips to be successful. It's 100% free.
Uh-oh, we can't hear you.
Now?
Now we can hear you. Okay.
Okay.
Good.
So the more people I can help be successful on this platform, the better, right? Because, I'm going to leave with saying this. I know it's almost the top of the hour. Is we have to start having these platforms work for us, and us stop working for these platforms. And that is just keeping them on, right? Like, we're not in the entertainment business. We're in the, investment business, the real estate business, the social media business, whatever it is that you're in. We have to focus on that and not just social media. It's a part of your business. It is not your business. And I think a lot of people focus too much on social media and then keeping people on and getting those likes and those comments. And now they're working for social media. And I could tell you, like, as a small account, social media doesn't pay very well, right? So try to get those people off. No matter what it is that you do, try to get them off those platforms and really investing in you, your coaching, your investing, your product, whatever it may be. Try to get these people and realize that they are people and they are potential clients. So keep that in mind every time you're interacting with someone.
That's a great finish. So thank you. Thank you, Chonetell. This was tremendous. We have Janelle Williams, and any question you have, feel free to put them in the comments. But this was awesome. We got to learn a lot about social media strategy and brand building. And thank you, Chonetell.
You're welcome.
We're gonna close out. This is Capital Races Club. See you all next time. Oh, it's holidays coming up, so see you all next year.
Yeah. Bye-bye.